is a comic book series that shows the epic and daily battles of the titular character against his arch-rival, PETEY, the cat. But did you know that beneath all of this, PETEY, the villain, is the character with the most soul and heart of them all? It all starts with a big problem in PETEY's mind, never being able to defeat Dogman. Every crazy idea he has ends up failing, whether due to a silly mistake or the absurd luck of the canine hero. And PETEY, the cat, simply can't take this nonsense anymore. And let's face it, who could? To make things worse, PETEY still had to deal with a completely useless assistant whose only talent was to collect payment at the end of the day, which, come to think of it, actually makes sense. But then, the villain has an epiphany. If there's anyone capable of doing things the right way, that is, his way, that person can only be himself. So, what's the brilliant solution? Something that we would all do: buy a cloning machine on the internet. Without wasting any time, he gets the contraption working, and here comes that detail he didn't read in the fine print. The clone comes in a baby version and needs to be raised until adulthood. And this is where everything changes in PETEY's life, because instead of getting an evil ally, he ends up becoming responsible for little PETEY, a kitten full of energy and a good heart. And whether he likes it or not, this forces the villain to face his childhood traumas and deal with his own demons to prevent little PETEY from going through the same traumas he did. But the journey until he accepts this is long and twisted. So make sure to catch up on your therapy, because today we'll learn how PETEY, the villain cat, is the main point of Dogman and the character with the most soul and heart in the series, here on Zigzag. The biggest obstacle in PETEY's path to redemption is no one but himself, or rather, his chronic irresponsibility. He's the type of person who keeps stumbling over his own mistakes, but instead of admitting it, he prefers to blame everyone around him. His plans go wrong? Dogman's fault. No one wants to work for him? It's because everyone is useless. And when he finally clones himself and realizes that, once again, things didn't turn out the way he wanted, he throws in the towel and tries to get rid of the problem. Who hasn't met one of these, right? The one who avoids responsibility like it's a subpoena. But that's when things get dark. Little PETEY starts calling his creator Papa, seeing him as a real father. But what does PETEY do? He gets irritated. He yells. He rejects the kitten whenever he can, until his irresponsibility reaches its maximum level, and he makes a radical decision to get rid of the clone. First, he tries to donate it to anyone who shows up, unsuccessfully. Then, in an act of unbelievable coldness, he simply abandons little PETEY in the middle of the street. Can you imagine leaving such a cute little animal like that without even looking back? You must be very cruel or very irresponsible, because deep down, PETEY wants to convince himself that he's a villain, a super bad guy. But the truth is that he's just a hurt guy, carrying traumas he never learned to overcome. Fortunately, the story takes a hopeful turn. Dogman finds little PETEY and, without hesitation, adopts the kitten, making sure he stays safe and loved. Would you adopt this cute kitten if you saw him abandoned on the street? Then, comment below with the hashtag Kitty so we know. But as I've said before, PETEY isn't exactly a real villain. He just thinks he is and tries to act like one. But as soon as he gets home, you can see that abandoning little PETEY was a heavy blow. The guilt is written all over his face. And, as if the heavy conscience wasn't enough, he ends up finding a handmade comic book made by little PETEY, all dedicated to his dear Papa. The little story shows the moments they spent together, and the ones they should have spent. Man, who can handle something like this? Anyone would crumble right away. But at least the kitten is in good hands now, safe with Dogman. And it's there that PETEY finds him again. And so, PETEY gets a new chance to start over. With the help of his faithful robot, ADHD, he rescues his little clone and goes back home, not really sure what to do next. Kind of like when you adopt a pet without knowing exactly how to take care of it. But it doesn't take long for PETEY's patience to start running out. Little PETEY simply doesn't stop asking why about everything. And to make matters worse, he keeps praising Dogman as if he were the greatest hero of all time. Irritated, PETEY decides to vent his frustration in the most dramatic way possible by putting on a puppet show just to mock Dogman. But then, something unexpected happens. The little clone has so much fun that he can't stop laughing. And at that moment, without realizing it, Petey begins to truly connect with him, but the calm doesn't last long. Just like in the comic book, the movie also brings back Flippy, that robotic fish with telekinetic powers, and he arrives with a clear target, little Petey. And it's at this point in the story that Petey has two crucial moments that prove he was never really a villain. First, he trusts Dogman to protect the pup and take him to a safe place. Second, and most importantly, he sacrifices himself for little Petey, taking his place and tricking Flippy, enduring all the fury of the telepathic fish in place of the clone. Now, that's what a hero does, right? Petey shown in that scene. But in the end, the one who really resolves the issue is the innocence of little Petey. With his sweet little way, he manages to calm Flippy, giving him a comic book similar to the one Petey himself received at the beginning. And so, both Flippy and Petey end up captured. But something changed. Now, Petey accepts his little clone for who he is, without trying to turn him into a villain. Well, at least for now. I wonder what's going to happen next. If you want to keep learning more about this story, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. The problem with bad habits is that they stick to us like gum on a shoe, hard to get rid of. And Petey still hasn't been able to face the traumas that make him act the wrong way. In the book, Dogman and Cat Kid, he escapes once again from the cat prison, and guess what? There he goes again, trying to bring little Petey to the dark side of the Force. This time, he comes with a very direct argument. You're my clone, so you're bad because you're just like me. But then comes the big irony, and a detail that proves how brilliant Dave Pilkey's writing is. If clones are truly identical, and little Petey, still a pup, doesn't feel like he's bad, then that means Petey also has goodness inside him. The difference is that he's been through so much bad stuff that he convinced himself otherwise. And the proof of this is in his past. When he was young, Petey was an exemplary Boy Scout, one of those who won awards for good deeds. But everything started to change the day Piggy, Crunky, and Bub betrayed him during a scout mission, a pivotal moment from the book Lord of the Fleas. But that was just the first crack in his heart. The real turning point that transformed Petey into a villain came later. Something so heavy that it made him harden completely, and later make the same mistake that had been made with him. In the book, For Whom the Balls Roll, Petey finally decides to open up to little Petey, and now he even calls him son. And of course, the cat starts telling his whole story, but not without some interruptions, because it's impossible not to interrupt yourself when your feelings are running high, right? He realizes that the feeling of betrayal that started with the betrayal of his own Petey was actually the theme of his entire life. Something that only grew stronger after his father, the cat Crud, abandoned him, along with his mother, when he was still a little kitten, just like little Petey. And that's so sad, because at the beginning, Petey was a good little kitten, but all these heavy events in his childhood shaped him and led him to create a clone of himself, only to later abandon it in the same way his own father had abandoned him. So, abandoning the clone isn't just a selfish act. It's as if he were putting aside the best part of himself, that good part that died with the traumas he carried, but was, in a way, restored by the very clone. And, in the end, that's a great lesson. What defines us isn't the bad things that happen to us, but what we decide to do with them, right? Petey was able to look at the traumas of the past, except that his clone plays a key role in his life, and, in the process, went through a big transformation, becoming a true hero. Man, these Dogman books are amazing. I think I'm going to reread all of them again. Who else is joining me?